Hi MC, yeah, we're back. Although my main computer is not back for some reason. Ding ding, round two. Exactly. Hi Pipe John. I don't know, my router's playing up, so my main computer network, my hardwired network is not working, but the mobile phones are working, so I can at least see the messages on the screen. So that'll do for now. So I'm watching myself on my other phone. So at least we've got the messages anyway. Hey Josh. So how you all been? Yeah, if it goes down again then I probably won't bother resetting it. It's already 1:30, so although that's not the latest that we've been on, but nevertheless. I was actually thinking to mix up some London Fog while we're on. I haven't done that in a while. And I'm coming towards the end of my current batch of London Fog. Hey Art, how you doing? So I've got this tin of Virginia Woods, which I got from Andrews Rigliano. This is from 2015, so I could use that. And this tin I think I got from John Walker. It's a really relatively fresh tin, but this is 100 grams. So that would be 100 grams to 50 grams. Usually it's around 60-40-ish. I think that's good enough. I must be honest that no sound. Anybody else having a problem with sound? Am I coming through okay? You hear me? Okay, Josh. So although it's not a particularly scientific, Tim, just try refreshing. Hi Pipe John. Yeah, I think so, Tim. Never better, Ralphie, thank you. So we're going to crack that tin of OGS. Oh, this stuff smells good. Ooh. Smoked by all shrewd judges. Don't you know? Oh, these belts are awesome. It smells so fruity. So in the 100 gram tins you get these long belts. They're about 40-50 centimeters, something like that. In a way, it's a bit of a shame to break up this OGS, rather to use it for London Fog, but it does taste good, what can I say? Hi Syed Adil Hussein. You're smoking green tea in your pipe. Okay. Never heard of that one. What did you think of that marlin flake, Josh? A slightly bent stem rather than straight. I don't know that it would make sense on a completely straight shank, to be honest. So if I was to bend it slightly, then it would look like that. I just don't think it would look right. Hi, Daniel. It depends how slightly you're talking about. If you're talking about literally the slightest curve, then I guess you could do it. But the problem with that, you haven't missed anything, Daniel. The problem with doing that is that when you bend it and you clench that in your mouth, so if you imagine that you've bent it a little bit, so when it's clenched in your mouth, the pipe would be at that angle. Okay? So the pipe being at that angle, when you light the pipe, then what's happening is that the smoke is rising and hitting the back of the bowl. Usually it's like that, so the smoke would rise up straight. When it's like that, the smoke rises and hits the back of the bowl. When you're lighting it, your flame's going to hit the back of the bowl, and that's going to get very scorched in no time at all. So whenever you bend the pipe, it's something which I learned from Mike, actually, from Briar Blues. Whenever you bend the pipe, you have to bend it in such a way that when you clench it, the bowl is going to be facing up. I probably didn't do that in the past, but I do that now. Always make sure that that's the case. This particular pipe, for instance, this Church Warden I made, which is, I am going to smoke this myself. I had all sorts of issues here with the angles, which I got wrong as a result of having to rethink the shape of the pipe in mid making the pipe. But if you have a look there, you see the line is in line with the top of the bowl, virtually. It doesn't have to be absolutely, but you just don't want it to be tipped like that, because when it's tipped like that, then you end up scorching the back of the bowl. So that's why when I bend the pipe, I try as much as possible to have that in line, so that when you're clenching there, it doesn't have to be bang on straight, but at least not tilted that much forward that it's going to burn the back of the bowl. So if you look at any sort of decent, well-made pipe, see, here's another example. So you've got the mouthpiece in the same axes as the top of the bowl. That's one of mine. Well, if we take somebody, say, this is an Astley, spot on, look at that. This is a Stanwell. So although this is lower, but the axis is the same. Okay, so that when you're holding it there, that's going to be straight upright. This is one of mine. This one actually is slightly off, so but it's in the opposite direction. It's actually tilted back. But I could actually bend it a little bit more and rectify that. It's one I smoke myself. A Church Warden, Daniel, should smoke cooler because of the long stem, yes. Quite right. Right, so this is a 2015 tin from Andrew Sirigliano, Virginia Woods. Oh yeah. Chips, anyone? Got plenty of vinegar. That's got a rich vinegary aroma there. In it goes. How you doing, Brian? Sorry you missed the last one. You caught the tail end of last time. Brian, was it you that sent me the cigars by Vivaldi. That time you sent me cigars, was the make Vivaldi some of the ones that you sent me? Because somebody else, I might have sent one onto something. I just couldn't remember if that was yours or not. Was that you that sent me those Vivaldi cigars? Right. Where is my London fog? Well, this is what I've got left of the London fog from March 19. It was you, yeah, I thought it was. I couldn't remember for sure. I think I still might even have one of them, or even two of them, not sure. Is it one of those square, short villager ones, North Country, like a box press one, cut at both ends, in a yellow and sort of brownish box? Yeah, those were actually one of the first cigars I ever smoked. That takes me back to probably 15-20 years ago, when I kind of was dabbling a little bit with cigars, but I never really got into it. I certainly wasn't buying any Cuban sort of long filler cigars. And in those days, when I did buy cigars, that's what I bought usually, was the villager ones. I actually really enjoyed them. I thought they were excellent. I haven't smoked one since I got into cigars properly. I should really give them another try. I seem to recall that I enjoyed them thoroughly. I feel like the guy in my corner shop when I was a little kid with the sweeties, weighing them out with his scales, pouring them in with a siphon like this. There we go, another jar of London fog goodness. So a special thank you to John Walker once again for supplying me with that beautiful Audit Golden Sliced. Very much appreciated. And I think I'm going to give this pipe its first ever smoke with some of the fresh London fog. How about that? Except I can't find any honey. Oh, there it is. I think I've got some long, you need to get some really long pipe cleaners for these. I used to have some. Let's see if I've still got them. Here we are. Have I ever tried the Cuban Bolivar cigar? Certainly have. or a Cohiba Behike. I have had those as well. The first Behike I ever had, I thoroughly enjoyed. I don't recall how many I've had, but the most recent one I had I didn't enjoy. That was it was a Behike 54, I think it was. There's three Vitolas. There's three sizes. There's the 52, which is like a Robusto size. 52, 54, and a 56. I don't think I've ever had a 56, but I've had the 54s and I've had 52s. The 52s, to me, tasted better than the 54s. Bolivars, I've had quite a few of the Bellicoso Fino of the Bolivars. I'm not sure if I've had the Corona or the Corona size. But the Bellicoso Fino is a tapered cigar at one end, and that's a bit of a milder smoke. And I've also had a limited edition Bolivar, and that was delicious if I remember correctly. Low nicotine tobaccos. Perfectly honest answer is I don't know the answer to that. There was a guy on YouTube who was having some issues with his heart, and his doctor said that he had to go to low nicotine tobaccos. His name is Briar. I can't remember. I'm sure somebody will be able to remember who it is. He comes on from time to time, but he ended up buying up some tobaccos and watering them down and getting rid of a lot of the tobaccos and then drying them out again. And he said that it reduced tobaccos quite a bit, the nicotine in tobaccos quite a bit. But I don't recall Briar. I can't remember his name. He had a lot of Boswell pipes. He liked his Boswell pipes. Used to watch him quite a lot. Smoking Briar, that's it. Signalman Tony, thank you. Smoking Briar, if you search his channel, you go through, I don't know if he's updated his content, if he's removed some of his old content or not. But he certainly went through a journey. He's on Instagram as well, so you could probably look him up and get in touch with him. So he'll be able to tell you which tobaccos are low in nicotine to start with, and he then could help you on maybe reducing nicotine in some of the other ones. But for the most part, I think most traditional aromatics are quite light in nicotine. Where are you based, Said, if I may ask? Which country? You in the States? Karachi. Well, I don't know what tobaccos you've got access to, but stuff like Lane 1Q, that kind of thing, should be pretty light. if you go to Dubai, you must have access to some nice cigars. Now you're talking my language. They've got a pretty healthy cigar culture there, I think. In my humidor, I have a couple of these. These are Zycar crystal clear humidifiers, and I top them up with I have a 5-litre thingamajig of purified water. It's medicinal purified water. That's lasted me years, that bottle. That's my setup. I haven't got that many cigars at the moment, but all I have in there is 2 of these Zycar things, and actually the Bovedas are not there to provide humidification, they're in there to recharge, so they're actually taking moisture from these, and I use these in my Tapadors. Oh well, Tim, I'll have to get in touch, won't I? I'd like to get some of their regional editions. I don't know if they have regional editions for Dubai itself, but they certainly have regional editions from other Middle Eastern countries. I know Lebanon has Lebanon gets Cuban regional editions. Cuban regional editions, and they're apparently very, very good. They're very sought after on the market. They wouldn't spoil at all. KSA, I've got one KSA cigar, believe it or not, which I was gifted. I talked about it just last week, I think, which is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia exclusive cigars made specifically for the KSA. You can buy KSA in the airport. That would be news to me. Well, Tim, I think that's an age thing as well. I wasn't aware that KSA was available in the airports, but I'm no expert. I was on the understanding that it was a private brand made for one of the princes, but maybe I'm wrong. That's what I was told by the person who gifted it to me anyway. Yeah, so I think that the more traditional cigar smokers would take the band off because it was seen to be show-offy if you had your band on there. But nowadays, I think it's totally not. I think it's not show-offy, and it's not anything. It's just the standard. Yeah, absolutely, Tim. That was the original understanding, but I think nowadays there's a lot of different traditions. I think people keep it on. I mean, the original reason why the bands were there in the first place was so that you have them on during smoking to protect your fingers, especially the ladies who didn't want their fingers getting yellow and smelling of tobacco. That's why the bans were originally initiated. All cigars were sold in a box without bands on them historically. If you look at the pre-embargo cigars and earlier, they'll all be without bands on them. And originally, that's how it started. That's how I understand it anyway. Was that it was to protect people's fingers. So that it would be pointless to take it off before you smoke it. But I think that for the vast majority of cigar smokers, they weren't too bothered about it. So for them, it was etiquette to take it off. And especially they would have been sort of growing up with not having seen the bands, and then to have the bands would seem a bit showy. But for us, for our generation and younger, it doesn't really exist, that whole etiquette thing. And if anything, it's out of respect for the makers to keep it on. I've never been to Cuba. My son was actually there a few months ago, but and believe it or not, he did not bring me back a cigar. He hasn't given me one so far. I see we're back up to the late 30s here, 37 people on. Thank you very much for rejoining, and sorry for the hiccup before. My main computer is still showing that yellow triangle. I don't know why it's doing that. On the network icon there at the bottom, it's still showing that warning triangle, which I have no idea why it is. Everything seems to be in order. The Wi-Fi is working. You smoke MC number 1, Monte Cristo, right? Okay. Hey Hector. Hey Rich. You bought an unfinished second type pipe. Okay. It does have a small crack on the bowl extending from rim down 12 mil or so. Should I just smoke it, or should I treat the bowl? Does the crack go right through? Where's the crack? On the inside of the bowl? Outside of the bowl? Right through the bowl? As Sherlock Holmes said in anti-reproduction of the last one, you remove the band from itself, but I think otherwise you'll be put down for a bounder. Yes, old boy. Well, I very rarely take my band off till I get there, till I burn down to it, so I guess I'm a bounder. I'm proud to be one. Well, Rich, what I would say is this. When I start off a new pipe, I anyway coat it with honey. That's just my personal preference. Not everybody goes for that. But in your particular case, it would certainly seem like a wise thing to do. And give it a good decent coating of honey, and smoke it, fill the pipe to the top so that it burns that honey when you smoke it, and hopefully that will build up a cake and protect that crack. If it was a seconds and you didn't pay much for it, I wouldn't worry about it too much, just smoke it. The other option you've got is just to fill it up until that crack. Don't fill it up, if it's only 12 mil down, if you've still got a good solid amount of space to fill with tobacco, just do that, and hopefully the heat won't expand it and crack it more. I don't leave it to set. This is a pipe I'm just smoking now for the first time. I haven't yet lit it, but I've just put the honey in 5 minutes ago and I'm about to fill it. I would fill it straight away, but I'm just waiting for the tobacco to air out a little bit. It's a fresh batch of London Fog, which I've literally made 10 minutes ago. Well, fun fang, the old codger style way of smoking is to just continue smoking each pipe the whole day and then leaving it to rest for a few days. Take another pipe, smoke that all day, and then leave it to rest. I think the newer generation of pipe smokers are a little bit more fastidious than that, and we're kind of grown up in the pipe hobby, being a bit more religious about it and resting the pipe between every smoke. So depending on how many pipes you've got, of course, if you've got just 1 or 2 pipes, then probably the original way is probably the best way to go. Smoke the pipe on a particular day, then leave it, and then smoke the next pipe. Yeah, Rich, that's what I would do. As I said, there's no loss if it didn't cost you much, and you're not too worried about it. If you think that you've been done, take it back to the shop. But if you're not bothered, then just smoke it. It's just an opinion, some people would smoke a pipe continuously until the cake was so bad that you couldn't refill it, and they'd throw it away and start again with another pipe. In the old days, people would do that as well. They would literally just smoke one pipe until it couldn't be smoked anymore, and then they'd just get a new one. One pipe, one blend. Yeah, that's definitely the codger style. And that's also because, in those days, they'd go to their local shop. Their local shop was the only place they could get their tobacco, because there was no internet, and they certainly weren't going to run around trying to find different blends from different shops. So they would probably at some point have tried some of the blends from their local shop, settled on one that they liked, and just smoked that. But they wouldn't have had thousands of different blends to choose from, like we are, as spoilt as we are. It wasn't a thing, it wasn't it's like people who smoke cigarettes generally will stick to one brand. If you smoke Marlboro, you smoke Marlboro. It's very unusual. It can happen, but it's very unusual for people to have 20 different brands of cigarettes at home and smoking a different brand every day. If you like the brand, you smoke it. Tobaccos in pipes was very much the same thing. It was just a different vehicle for absorbing nicotine. That's all. Yeah, it could be Stonehenge. Yeah, a meerschaum is different. A meerschaum you could really smoke continuously. Clan and Condor Imperator. Split the room on that one. Pattern 1991. So this pipe I can smoke whilst having it in front of the screen. Absolutely, Stonehenge. We are very spoiled, no question about it. I do not like breaking in pipes. Hey, Wildcat. Turkish coffee sounds like a good companion. It wasn't Lagavulin. Yours is still Lagavulin, is it, Tim? One briar pipe and the rest are Mears classical. Wow. How many Mears are we talking? Earl Grey tea. I must admit I do like a milky coffee with a Latakia blend. $25. Well, I'm down to one Meerschaum. I used to have a few, but I very rarely smoke them. I smoked. The first time I really sort of enjoyed a Meerschaum was I was smoking some vintage Syrian, a Mac Baren vintage Syrian. A vintage Syrian is a really nice blend, but I find it to be quite rich. And although I enjoy it in a briar, it's not a tobacco that I would smoke back to back. But in a Meerschaum, the Meerschaum just took the edge off it a little bit, enough to make it a little bit more enjoyable. Earl Grey is very good with Lakelands. That surprises me actually, because Earl Grey is of the same kind of ilk as Lakeland, so usually sometimes contrast works better, so I'm surprised. I can understand it, sometimes it would complement it, but it's the same kind of DNA, isn't it? I'm surprised you say that, Fong Fang. I don't think it's that hard to get them. There's a guy on IG who makes beautiful Instagram makes beautiful Meerschaum pipes. I think is it Core Pipes? I can't remember his name now, and maybe I could have a quick look. I'm not sure. I'm kind of tempted to get one of his pipes because they look awesome. They really do. Is he known as Core Pipes? Yeah, it could be that 90% are without, but you can get with filters. IG is Instagram. Yeah, there's no shortage of Meerschaum pipe sellers. There was a guy who came to the Pipe Club of London a few months back, and I bought one from him there and then. He came with a case full of them, but I ended up passing that one on, and I'm left just with my club pipe, which you guys have seen already many times. This is the Pipe Club of London, and this is made by, I can't remember his name now. I do have a card of his somewhere. And this is a 9mm. For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason they seem to have difficulty bonding the tenons to the mortise on Meerschaum pipes. Maybe glue doesn't adhere well to the Meerschaum, I don't know. It's not made fantastically well, the stem side of things, but the Meerschaum is. The Meerschaum is great. I mean, they know their stuff. In an ideal world, they would sort of partner up with somebody else to do the stems for them, because none of the Meerschaum companies seem to do stems that well. Thanks, Rich. Yeah, it does. It smokes really well as well. Well, Germany certainly is the place to get 9mm. If you're after any type of pipe, Meerschaum, Breyer, doesn't make a difference. Germany's the place. It could be some of them have, the older ones certainly would have screw type tenons, but I think people used to over tighten them and then it would just loosen from the Meerschaum. So I don't see that so much. Not the recent ones, I haven't seen them that much with the screw-in type ones. Well, the constricted draw is going to be dependent on the stem and whoever made the stem. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's a standard thing that the draw is restricted. I think that's just a testament to whoever made the pipe. You can turn them. I certainly haven't tried, but you can turn Meerschaum. There's no danger of that, Tim. It wasn't one of the ambitions in my ambitions video for 2020. I'm not sure if I said it in that video, but one of my ambitions certainly has to be as well, is spending more time learning to cut my own stems. Because on all the stems that I do now using pressed ones, I still spend a lot of time shaping the bit. So all of that kind of thing I've had plenty of practice with, but it's actually just cutting it to the original basic shape that I need to just practice. I've done it a few times with varying degrees of success. It's almost like a chalky kind of material, but harder. When they take it out of the water, it's obviously it's wet and soft. And when they carve them, especially in Turkey where it comes from, when they carve it, and they carve it wet, it absorbs a lot of moisture. Hence, that's one of the qualities of Meerschaum. But it is a type of, as people have said, whether it's bone or fossil. Well, the Meerschaum lined pipe is to give you the best of both worlds, I guess. It's to give you the qualities of a Meerschaum pipe, but in a receptacle that's not going to break. Meerschaum pipes are notorious for being very fragile, and you drop your Meerschaum pipe, that's the end of the pipe, because it's like glass almost. like China, same kind of idea. So people who like the way Meerschaum smokes, for them it's a bit of a double sort of whammy, so that they get the Meerschaum experience, but with the hardness of the Bry around it. I mean, I've tried it, but I personally didn't like it. I think that the Bry probably restricts the absorption of the Meerschaum. You smoke it outside the same way as you smoke it anywhere. You just make sure you don't drop it. This is one of the stems that I've done quite some time ago. The Cumberland stem, needs polishing up. But it wasn't my best effort, but it was an effort. It clenches fine, smokes fine. No, the coldness doesn't affect it. Did you have it in its case, Tim, when you went backpacking with it? Hector. Well, if it's in its case, you wouldn't expect it to break, would you? Right, we'll have to call him Tim G. Or we could call him Tim Bennett, as in Gordon. This pipe is now really smoking quite well. The first few draws weren't nice at all, but it's already starting to taste better. Mr. Eximba, how the devil are you? Good question, Daniel. I did not like making the mortar pipe, to be honest. It was a bit of a devil to work with. I've made 1.5 mortar pipes, and I haven't bothered buying any more of the material because I just didn't enjoy it. I don't enjoy smoking them, to be honest. And any of the mortar pipes that I've ever had, I've sold on or gifted. I gave one which I made, the one and only one which I completed, I gave to Andrew Sirigliano. And the second one is still in mid-creation. So I don't know if I'll ever finish that one. Happy New Year to you too, Mr. Eximba. You didn't like your Mimo Provenzano mortar. Well, actually, the overall shape, Daniel, is already made. It's a bit of a modern sort of spaceship kind of design it's turned out to be. it's an asymmetrical design, but I have to re-drill it. I had some major issues at the time when I drilled it. But I just haven't really even looked at it, to be honest. I've been so busy with all the bri pipes that I've been making. Pipes are smoking really well. Very effortless. I was actually reading some old pipe and tobacco issues. I bought another batch from Copper Joe's, and they arrived just after the holidays. It's really good to look at old issues to see interesting shapes. Yeah, bands is definitely a thing. I've tried one so far. I've done one or two acrylic bands, which came out quite nice. This was the one that Tim said he likes. This was if you remember, was quite a high billiard with a plateau top, which I've trimmed right down, made it into a pot, stained it, and the band on this one looks great. Lots of different colours going on here on this one. Perfectly drilled. This one will be an excellent smoker, whoever ends up getting that pipe. There's quite a lot of work that goes into bands, I must say. Hey Paul. And I think that if I want to really get into using bands a lot, I'd probably end up having to get a metal lathe, because you need to be quite precise with it. And the only real way to be precise is with a machining lathe, because on a wood turning lathe you're only as precise as your hands. If you want to make a straight edge on a piece of plastic, on a piece of acrylic, at the moment I use a Forstner bit to do that, but a Forstner bit doesn't always turn plastic very well, and it sometimes chips it rather than cutting it. And I actually spent a lot of money getting a high quality German Forstner bit just for that purpose, and it really doesn't work that well. So I need to find another way to make a straight edge, to make a straight face on acrylic. And it's key, because at the moment, when I'm making a pipe, I have to face off the end of the stem to make sure that that's completely straight. Then I have to face off the end of the shank to make sure that's completely straight, so that when the two meet, there's absolutely no gap. And otherwise, it's not going to be a good looking pipe. You want it to be a really nice, smooth transition. Another good way, especially on a classic pipe, to see if it's been well turned, is that if you turn the stem round and it's equal, and it doesn't have to be literally to the nanometer, but if it's pretty much the same, that means it's very well, the turning is done and it's very circular. With freehands you can't do that. With freehands, usually they're not going to be exactly round, and therefore if you turn the stem it's going to be a bit lopsided. I could show you that on something else. Let me see what this one's like. This one, there's a slight discrepancy, but that's pretty good as well. That's pretty circular. See what this one's like. And you can see a difference on this one. You can see there, when you turn it, there is a bit of a discrepancy there on that. But I suppose that's one way of knowing which way up the stem should be. This one's pretty bang on as well. Good evening, Mike. How you doing? I mentioned you in dispatches a bit earlier on. We were talking before about the stems being in line with the top of the bowl, so that the bowl is not charring at the back of the bowl. I was talking about that before, and I mentioned that I learnt that from you. You're such a snitch, Hector. You're unbelievable. It's always telling on me. Hector just wants to be teacher's pet. Well, I'm just breaking in this very large bowled pipe, which I've put a Churchwarden stem onto, and it's smoking very, very well. And I'm smoking a fresh batch of London Fog, which we mixed in a little bit earlier on using the tin of Virginia Woods from Andrew Sirigliano and some OGS, which I got from John Walker. Mike likes Cumberland, but he believes it should be called Brindle as opposed to Cumberland. And he's probably right in terms of the original. Cumberland, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm sure Mike will correct me, but Cumberland is just a dual-coloured, double-coloured stem, whereas Brindle is a material. Which is the ebonite, double-coloured. It's not just red and brown anymore, but there's lots of different Brindle stems nowadays. I didn't know that. They use that for bowling balls. Cool. I could see that. So if I sanded the bowling ball, it would turn brown, like ebonite does. But all the pipe companies seem to have adopted it as a the dual coloured ebonites. They seem to call that Cumberland. But you do get people describing acrylics as Cumberland as well. So. You and Hector both, Mike. But I was very true to you earlier on, Mike. Somebody asked me what that blend was, the mystery blend, and I respected our agreement, and I did not divulge. So I'm a good boy too. I can be teacher's pet. Daniel, yeah, that's a good observation. And I think most of the high graders, the artisan pipers, they will first shape the pipe so that they can get the best out of the grain, and they can follow the grain as best as possible to get exactly as much out of the grain as they can before they actually drill it. Once they've done that, then they'll drill the bowl and the draft hole. But for amateurs and for people starting up, I think that would be quite hard to start off that way. And there are still plenty of artisan pipe makers who don't start off by sanding and shaping, and they do the drilling first. Yeah, Artie's Place sent me a few of these, which he'd taken some screen grabs from my videos and made them for me and sent them, which was really cool. London Fog is my own mix-up of some other blends. I didn't blend it myself, but it's just a mixture of Virginia Woods by McClelland's and Audit Golden Sliced, and it's very tasty. Hey Chad. Well, the drilling itself is not hard, not physically hard. It's difficult, you got to make sure that you get it in the right place so that the two holes meet. As I say, the reason why they do it is to get to the best out of the briar. So when I chuck up a block, when I put a block on the on my lathe, all I will have done to try and get the best out of the grain is I would usually sand, a millimetre or two off the edge of the block. I will wet it to see what the grain looks like. But by the time you sand down to your shape, there's no guarantee that the grain's going to look the same. It may go in a completely different direction. It doesn't usually go in a completely different direction, but it could become much more diluted. It could be, not as, you might have a beautiful straight grain or bird's eye when you look at it first, and then by the time you get down to your shape, it could be much less and it won't be as nice. But I have to say that if you're working on plateau blocks especially, you've got a reasonable chance of getting a reasonable grain. It's never going. You can never be assured of getting a high grade type of straight grain or anything like that. And to be honest, even if you had a high grade potential in a pipe, if you do it the way I do it, the chances of getting it to be a high grade pipe is very low, because you really do need to follow the grain before you, in order to get the best positioning of the grain as well.
in order to get the best out of the block. And then you can't do that if you've already drilled it. Then you have to follow your drill. Your pipe shape has to follow the drill so that your bowl is in the center of the shape, or depending on which shape you're going for, of course, but roughly. My briar comes from Italy. It's Mimo briar, the stuff I use now. I started off using briar which I got from Northern Briars, but I've only got a few of those blocks left, and I know that Ian is not particularly keen on selling me loads more, so I just put those aside, and I'm using Mimo blocks, and they're really good, excellent. Well, Daniel, he doesn't know until he starts making the shape. Until he starts sanding it and getting into the block. He'll do the same as what I do in terms of at the beginning, to get an idea of the orientation of the block, and to turn it the right way up to know if he's going to have which side of the block he wants to use for which side of the pipe. So if he wants to have a straight grain pipe, and he can have either the plateau on top or the plateau on bottom, but he'll hopefully get straight grain extending from that plateau. So he'll obviously just do some minor sanding just to see what the block looks like, and then he'll start shaping carefully just to see how it's looking, and go from there. But the grain is visible. You can see the grain when you're working on it. And the real sort of high-end experienced carvers have a degree of success in predicting. Once they see the block and they can see the grain, they could predict pretty much how that grain's going to shape inside. The Mimo, is it pre-aged? Not too sure, I'd have to check. Most of them say that they're aged 10 years, something like that, but I don't recall. Good night, Robert, thanks very much. Good night, Brian, thank you for joining. The most expensive briar or wood? I don't know. I mean, the Mimo stuff comes in 3 grades. So obviously 1 is the highest grade. I tend to get 2 most of the time. Occasionally I get 1, but most of the time it's 2. And if it's, sometimes you can get 3 and they're pretty good, but you can use them for rusticated pipes without a problem. I'm not an expert, Mike might be able to tell you, but I would imagine that it destroys the bush, because you're taking the root ball. Straight grain is a matter of preference. It's to get a really absolutely perfect straight grain, that's very hard. But some people prefer, cross grain. Some people cross grain is straight grain, but using it horizontally. Some people like bird's eye. It really depends. But if you ask somebody like Frank, what's his name, the guy in America, he will tell you straight grain all the way. What did you smoke in it, Rich? Sinatra, yeah. It's not. There's a guy called Frank Burler, but I don't mean him. There's another well-known collector who collects only straight grains. I'm sure Mike knows who it is. Fred Hanna, that's the one. Not a Frank after all. I think he didn't he bring out a book some time ago. Erin was a good call. Does he bring it his collection to shows? Hey Felix, how you doing? I think most people involved in the piping industry are good geezers, good blokes. Mike at Briar Blues, he's pretty good. He's alright. Flame grain, Daniel, is really the shape of the grain. It's, I guess it's named that way because it has a liking to looking like a flame licking up the side of the bowl. I don't grade my pipes, Daniel. I'm just happy if they come out successfully at the moment. Maybe one day I'll get to a position where I want to grade pipes, but at the moment I'm not at that kind of stage. Some people have sort of nomenclature that they put on their pipes, which designates everything about the pipe. So some companies would have a certain code for a smooth pipe or a rusticated pipe or a sandblasted pipe, and then obviously the quality within each. I personally think that's a little bit overkill. And I think it's just to grade for quality. I mean, to put code on your pipe to say it's sandblasted when you can look at it and see that it's sandblasted. I just don't see the point in that. You see a pipe's rusticated, you can see it's rusticated. So I personally don't see the point in that. And for me, it's really just about grading in terms of quality. And of course, it's also based on your own particular opinion. You know, everybody would agree with it. But in any event, I'm not at that stage. It went up like a rocket. Oh my. $63. Oh, did you get 63? Alright, will you guys just excuse me for a minute? I need to top up.
Thanks everybody for hanging on. You gotta feel bad for the guys in Australia. What's going on there is pretty frightening. Actually, it's funny you should say that, Chad. There was a pipe on Danish Pipe Shop at Stanwell, which had a really deep sandblast, and the ring grain. It was a ring grain, and it was so perfect. I sent them an email and I said, "Is this a combination of sandblasting and rustication?" And they said that they're not as far as they're aware. They said it looks fantastic, but they're not aware that it's both together. There are some makers who make pipes that look like sandblasting, but it's actually rustication. I think Fabrizio Natalizia used to do that. I don't know if now his pipes are sandblasted, but certainly I've had a pipe from him which was most definitely a rustication, but it looks like a sandblast. It was actually really nice. It was an unstained, unfinished bulldog.
And I think J.E. Rubio, who makes really high class, very fancy looking pipes, I think in the beginning his were also, I don't know for sure, I don't want to speak out of turn, but they certainly looked like they might have been rusticated, but nowadays they're certainly sandblasted and they look awesome, his pipes. He's got also some process where he brings his pipes to an unbelievable shine. The finish is awesome. Very, very precise work. Yeah, I've seen quite a few of Larry Ruch's pipes. I think there's a couple on Pipestud at the moment, and you can see a good example of that. But in reality, that's a rusticated pipe. I guess the sandblasting afterwards is just to finish it, but it's not really, in the true sense of the word, a sandblasted pipe. Well, in the true sense of the word, it is, because it's been blasted with sand, but I think you know what I'm saying. It's not a sandblasted pipe to bring out the ring grain. Yeah, Amirali pipes are interesting. I have one here which I haven't smoked yet. This was a pipe which was made for an Israeli Facebook group, specifically for it. It says here, this unique pipe was created in Sicily for the Israel Independence Celebration 70th anniversary. It's a limited edition of 70 pipes. And this is some of their laser etching that they use. So this is supposed to represent the Israeli flag. It's blue and white. Like, the blue is actually really quite dark. So this is number 21 of 70. You guys may remember I had a bit of a to-do with Amirali about this. This is the third pipe that I got because of cracked pipes that I got from them, and in the end they just got fed up, which I was really surprised by, but they didn't even want to talk to me. But I thought it was unacceptable to send cracked pipes, but there you go. The purpose of oil curing. Well, once again, Mike will probably answer this better than me, but the purpose of oil curing, as I understand it, is to remove toxins within the briar. So you're left with just the briar, nothing else. There's a typo. Yeah, celebration spelled with an S. No, it's not, it's a C. 70th anniversary. Should that be two S's? And addition is spelled wrong as well. You got edition. Yeah. Edition is spelled wrong. Independence, yeah, independence. And I think anniversary is also wrong. Yeah, I don't know, I felt very guilty at the time that I was being too fussy, but you guys may remember that I showed the pipe a few times. And I was really concerned, shouldn't I send it back? I just felt bad that I was being overly finicky. But when you're buying a brand new pipe from a company like that, you don't expect to get a cracked shank. That was the first pipe. The shank had a crack right through. So that one was changed. And then the next one that I got It had some sand pits somewhere around here, and there was a crack going from one sand pit to the next, and it must have been about 30 millimeters, maybe 3 centimeters long, a crack along the base of the pipe. You can buy a pipe on Amazon. I've never bought one from Amazon, but you can. I will have a look, Paul the Piper. I'm not sure if I've visited your channel as yet. But I will do my best to do that. Thank you very much for the heads up. Incidentally, any of you guys, if you're on, that have bought a pipe from me recently, in case I'm not subscribed, if you've done a video and you want me to see it, then please do just give me a heads up. I'd love to see you showing the pipes. Well, I must be honest, that does surprise me, Stonehenge, because Castello generally has got a pretty good name, but I'm surprised that they would have let that go. But it really depends. When you say it was drilling was atrocious, some companies will be quite happy with a drill which is high and not at the bottom of the bowl. I must be honest, I've got some pipes which are fantastic smokers and the drill is not right. So it's a bit of a... Sure, you want to get them right, but I've got, as I say, I think it's my Bentley, which I smoke Virginias in, and it smokes fantastic. And that one comes into the bowl, I don't know, a few millimeters above the base of the bowl. You have to allow... At least that's what I found with my own pipes, is that you have to allow a little bit of leeway because of the base of the drill bit. It depends on the shape of the drill bit that you're using, so that when let me see if I can find an example here. So imagine this is your drill bit. Imagine that's going into the bowl. So if you have, forget this flat base, imagine if it was round, you'd have to get this draft hole drilled to absolute perfection to meet it right at the bottom. But you have to bear in mind that there's a curve which goes round here. So sometimes it'll come in just on the side of that curve, but because the drill bit comes to a little bit of a point, that point might be just a little bit lower. I don't think that's terrible personally. I've not seen that as being a problem in pipes, but if you're aiming for the high end and you're aiming to be the best, then all of that has to be spot on. Oh, the draft hole, okay. Well, for me, that's one of the advantages of using a lathe for the draft hole. Most of these companies, they drill them freehand, so they'll have a spinning bit and they just feed the pipe into it. So that's never going to be as pretty to look at as a drill done on a lathe. The drill done on a lathe is, unless you're not doing it very well, but it should be spot on. That one there you can see is perfectly circular, absolutely bang in the middle, and it's really no challenge if you're doing it on a lathe. It's nothing special, That one there, you see that one has come out absolutely perfectly, and when you get that teardrop, that inverted teardrop shape, you've done it well. When you get a complete circle, that usually means you're maybe slightly off.
So I don't know if you can see on this one. This one's also drilled pretty well. For me, it's spot on. But I would say that it's maybe, you can see that the hole comes to a point. The bowl comes to a point. That point is maybe 1 millimeter lower than the draft hole in this particular pipe. Whether you would call that bad drilling or not, I don't know. I personally wouldn't. Yeah, drill to the side is a different matter. I've got a couple of pipes like that, but I'm not selling them. Those are pipes which I'll, in this particular pipe, which is absolutely love the shape of this pipe. This one, I don't think it's 3 mil off, but it's off. So that is holding it roughly straight there, and you can see it's slightly pointing over there to the left. I would say that it's about, well, by the time you get to the base of the hole, it is about 2 or 3 mil off actually on this one, but I wouldn't sell that. At least I wouldn't sell it unless the customer was aware of that and was still okay with it. Now, how did it smoke, Stonehenge? Did you notice a difference to any of your other pipes? You can make the draft hole bigger, Daniel. There's a lot of people out there, very experienced pipers, who deliberately enlarge the draft hole on the pipes, on many of the pipes that they've got, if they feel it's not wide enough. But I guess you don't want to make the draft hole too wide, because then the drawer is going to be much too open, and you've got more chance of getting bits of tobacco coming up the draft hole. Can you make pipes from mahogany? Don't know. If that's the case, Mike, why are people so fussy about it? Fair enough. Hey Jordan, how you doing? I caught a bit of your video earlier with your new pipe, very nice. I do like the way you do your stems with that really sharp saddle shape where it goes down from the wide bit to the thin bit, almost a straight cut down, which I think is quite unique actually. It gives it a really sharp look and will reduce weight as well, I guess. Mike, you got any suggestions who I could speak to about if I want to start using bands and just adornments, maybe wood, that kind of thing as adornments? And people use these spaces between the various joints, which I've not really found anywhere. I don't imagine that people are cutting those spaces themselves, and I would imagine they're just buying it from sheet, aren't they? It was, who was I speaking to? To John Keller. He did actually send me a web address of a company that does it in the States. Yeah, but the spaces, I can't imagine they make the spaces themselves. I mean, they'll obviously turn them to make them round, but I think they just cut them from sheets. So it's just plastic sheets, acrylic sheets, I guess. Right, yeah. I would imagine trying to face off things like that would be virtually impossible. You wouldn't be able to grip it for a start. But I was saying earlier on that if to do some, nicer adornments, wooden bands and things like that, and shank ends, presumably you'd need a metal lathe for that, to get that precise shaping and facing off. Yeah, that's what I do actually, Mike. A lot of the company that John Keller sent me to is a pen making supplies company. But I was trying to get something here in the UK and I could find nothing. But I could go on eBay and just get acrylic sheets, so I may just do that. Just regular acrylic sheets. Is the opening at the bottom piece always the same length? I'm not sure what you mean there, Daniel. Well, if it depends. And the stems that I use, some of them come already slotted and fanned out, and some of them don't. Some of them I'll do that myself, and some of them I won't. So it's really pot luck at the moment. I haven't really got any particular. See this one here. Too bright. So this one here has already been sort of fanned out a little bit, so I don't do that much to the slot, but I will do a fair bit of shaping around to make it comfortable on the outside. But if I'm working on a pressed ebonite stem, then I will fan that one out most of the time. And on the stems that I have made myself, then generally I would. Hi Jimmy. Occasionally, I'm certainly not doing them as a matter of course yet. I did do one not so long ago, but I wasn't happy with it. But that's certainly one of my ambitions for 2020, is to do more stems myself. Good night, tree. Well, had a bit of a late start today. It's already 3:05, so I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to follow Tree. Thanks all for joining. And I have to sort out my computer because I'm still not able to use my computer for some reason. It's not connecting. But thanks very much for joining. Thanks Josh, Stonehenge, Daniel, Paul the Piper, Chad, Jimmy, North Country Fisher, Tree, who may well be gone by now, Mike at Briar Blues, Jordan the Prairie Pipe Shop, Wildcat Sam, and everybody else. Thank you very much for joining. I wish you all a wonderful week. No problem, Ron. Thank you. Rich, thank you. Have a wonderful week, Boner Piper, and I will catch you on the next one.